So
Sorry, go ahead.
in December, we did a partnership with class. And so we do want to reference, that we're going to kind of build upon that. So this is all about, of course, surrendering to what is, to more ease, pleasure, and joy in our relationships. And relationship meaning partner, a child, a parent, a friend, a colleague, like the other, right? Like not us, but the other. And so I just want to kind of touch on like briefly what we talked about in December and really point back to that class if you want to kind of dig into that stuff again. And then we're going to build upon what we already talked about. But during that one, we talked about really it's about entering into relationships correctly. I recently, Tiffany and I shared a reel. Are we good, Tiff?
Yep, I'm
Okay.
just pulling up the video you're referencing.
Oh, the Oprah one though?
No, the entering a relationship.
Oh, okay. Oh, the December thing?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. But on Instagram, we shared a clip from Carolyn Miss and Oprah, and they were talking about how do you know you're on the right path with the right person and the right job. And it's when you are not in a position to betray yourself, where you have to negotiate your own sense of integrity, your heart, and it feels right. And so that's ultimately human design. That's what we're talking about, is you are truly yourself. And so in a relationship, it's the same thing. So, in December, we talked about, and Tiffany, I texted this image to you, but I'm not sure if it's going through right now. But there's 3 charts. There's like, for example, in me and Tiffany's relationship, there's my chart, who I am, always, right? That's my integrity, that's my heart, that's who I am deep down. There's Tiffany's, which is her, individuality, her self, her true self. And then there's this third entity, this third chart that is the relationship. And so again, there's beautiful things that we get because I don't have all of the different things that Tiffany has. We're different people. So when we come together, we get access to all this additional energy. These different channels are defined. These different centers are defined that neither of us have defined or that one of us have defined separately. So often that relationship chart operates completely, not often, always, it operates completely differently than each individual. And especially, like, for example, Tiffany and I neither of us have a defined solar plexus, emotional system, the wave, that needs the time and kind of this whole like cycle that has to happen. We do not, either of us have that definition of our chart. However, together, because we each have a gate that they combine to define that center. So our relationship does have this emotional authority, meaning it's going to take time. A lot of things, are going to just seem slower than either of us are used to when we're working together, when we're coming together and kind of, working on projects or communicating or trying to, find time to get together or whatever. It's like we have to give things much more time than either of us are used to. So the point of that example is to say the relationship functions differently than each individual. So that's where we end up with kind of dilemmas in relationship, right? Because we don't really understand that unless we're looking at this mechanical chart. Okay, so again, I like to always remember, and I was reminded again in one of my analyst classes, that there's no kind of quote unquote on paper with human design mechanics. It's not like, well, she has these aspects, and I have this. So together we would be this, like, we should do a human design dating app because we can put these different, like these different pieces of data together, and it means it's going to be a good relationship. No. That's not how it works. There's no on paper like relationship with mechanics. It can make no sense in mechanics and be correct. It can make absolutely every sense in the world mechanically and not be correct. And so I like the example in my analyst class. This is the map. It's not the actual territory. It's like if you're looking at a map, that doesn't mean you've gone and explored the actual land and the boulders and the mountain and the sunset that happened. And so I like to keep myself kind of grounded in that truth of this is like as if I went and got my blood analyzed and I came back O positive. But how does that express? That's a whole different thing that only each of us can know. Okay. So just to build on that, in the December class, we talked about, are there, with two people, are they the same type or a type? Are they both generators? Are they both projectors? Is one a projector, is one a generator? Or are they different? Because that's going to have a completely different strategy in life. And again, we sort of I think we even displayed Tiffany in my connection chart and talked through that. Tiffany's a manifesting generator. She's here to wait to respond. She needs yes, no questions. That's the generator or a type is their mechanism, their mechanic. I'm a projector. I need to be invited. I need to wait. I need to have much more rest and move slower in a way. So that right there is two different strategies in life. Now, does it mean that there's issues between us? No. It means that with awareness, respect, and acceptance, it can all be navigated beautifully. And the things that Tiffany and I get out of our relationship is it's like far worth any differences. It's like so beautiful to embrace the differences because we just get all this, all this frequency and energy and magic that we get from the relationship. We don't just have that on our own. We have our own magic, each of us. But so we talked about that in that previous relationship talk. We also talked the type and strategy difference. We talked a little bit about authority difference. Because again, if someone's emotionally defined, they need much more time. And if I'm splenic or sacral, I'm quick and I can know right now. However, if I'm not able to give the emotionally defined relationship person, if I'm not able to give them time because I'm fast, then that's not going to go well, right? That's going to cause dilemmas. So that's just a touch on what we already did talk about. And we started to talk about, we also talked about and we have a post about this, the connection themes, the 9 and know where to go, 8 and 1, have some fun, 7 and 2, work to do, 6 and 3, better to be free, and 5 and 4, relationship no more. Those numbers are referring to how many centers are defined and how many are defined together in the relationship chart. So, but again, it's like 9 and know where to go. Well, there's two sides to every single one of these, mechanical connection themes. If you have only one center that's not defined, like in Tiffany and my relationships, it's 8 to 1, have some fun, we have an undefined root. So there's kind of this ease of understanding, and we're sort of looking out the same window of the house, at the same things. However, the flip side is that we can get caught up in that open center, and we can both be rushing each other, because that's the theme of the undefined root, is being in a hurry, trying to rush things and trying to, get it done quickly and knock it off the list. So there's the two sides to everything of those, every one of those. Even, 6 and 3, better to be free. Well, there's 1, 5 and 4 relationship no more. You have 5 common centers defined and 5 centers defined together and 4 that are undefined. That sounds like you will not have a relationship with this person, relationship no more. That is not how it can actually happen in real life. My little sister I'm a 5 and 4 with her. And also one of my good friends, Kate, is a projector, and I'm a 5 and 4 with her. It is beautiful. Both of those relationships are so good. We completely understand each other, recognize each other, treasure each other. What can happen though is it's a little harder sometimes to come together. Like Kate and I, there's always kind of these things that end up getting sort of taking precedence over, like something happens where it's like, oh, we were going to get together, but like this other thing happened. So it's just kind of mechanically things like that will happen. But there's almost like the beauty of a 5 and 4 relationship is that you're not codependent. You're not just getting all these things together that you wouldn't necessarily have. It's almost like, in a way I look at it, like you can be your individual self in that relationship. So the way that it's worked out in my experiment is these numbers are just kind of fun little sayings to like generally look at the mechanical nature of it, but it doesn't mean that you cannot have a successful 5 and 4 relationship no more connection, So, okay. So that's a review of the December class. Are there any comments or questions, or Tiffany, anything to add before we move into some of the other concepts?
Mm-mm.
Build on that?
No, we want to go. We want to hear the next
Yeah,
piece.
so we're already at 12:20, we're at 26 after, we gotta get this going. Okay. So the kinds of connections are important too, when you look at the ways that the channels come together. So say, and it's a little hard not being able to kind of reference an image, but if I did send you one in case that happens to come through.
It didn't come through, man.
Oh, good.
No, it did not. So
it didn't?
no.
I just tried sending it again, but it looks like it's in this. Okay, so with the different ways that it comes together, so say, you have a gate on one side attached to a channel. A center, right? You have okay, I'll use Tiffany.
I have the Gates of Love image. Could you speak from that and I could pop that in? No.
Let's see. Yeah, you can do that just so we have a visual.
Okay.
Because I can point to, like, for example, the 59 and 6. So with Tiffany and I, you see on the sacral, there's no defined gates of love. On this gates of love graphic, there's no gates of love that come out of the sacral. So we can see that white center in the middle, just, with no activation. So I just want to use this so you can kind of get a visual. So I have the gate 59, and Tiffany, if you look across that channel, she has the gate 6, which is coming off the solar plexus. So together, we make what's called an electromagnetic channel. So when you have one person with one gate and the partner or relationship person has the other gate across the channel, that comes together, and now we have this channel that we create together. And so Tiffany and I have 5 electromagnetic channels, and then we don't get that frequency on our own. And the other thing with a gate, when you have one gate but you don't have the whole channel, it's almost like the energy of it is seeking that other side, so that it can so that the energy can move across that channel. If you think about it like a circuit board, it can move across that and continue its journey through the body graph, the way that the energy moves. So it's almost like I'm seeking, not purposefully, not with my mind, but my frequency is seeking that gate 6, so that I can, complete the mechanism, the theme of that channel. So there's different kinds of the ways the channels can come together, and that's really important in relationships. So as I said, there's electromagnetics, which is when one person has one gate, the other person has the other gate, boom, we get this whole, it feels like, oh, you complete me almost in this area, or like I get all this stuff with you that I don't necessarily have access to on my own. And that channel particularly is called the channel of mating. However, and reproduction. However, it's not just, sexuality and mating like children. It is that too, but it's birthing something in the world that is fertile, that can grow, that is, that can go out into the world and multiply, right? So, Tiffany and I have birthed many things. We have so many, there's this feeling that it's like, yes, we also have all the other electromagnetics that feel so good. So with the electromagnetic, it can feel like, finally, I found the other part, this other quality that is available to me, and Tiffany gets that availability at the other side of hers too, right? And it can be really beautiful. However, as we said with everything, the dualistic world, the human design is certainly a dualistic, science, that it's beautiful or challenging, right? It can be like, it's like the love-hate thing. So almost like in an electromagnetic it's an attraction-repulsion dynamic, a love-hate, kind of or not. We always say in human design, it's this or not, or the opposite of it, right? So it can be this kind of spicy, attraction when you have an electromagnetic channel with someone. And then, as the relationship progresses, it can kind of be like this, it can have this push-pull element to it, where it's like there's a kind of a repulsion, not in a judgment way, just in a, hey, it's a mechanic, I'm just going to honor it. Sometimes I want to pull away from it. Sometimes I don't want to, create something fertile in the world, but whatever, right? It's it's just kind of, it happens. It's not a mind chatter decision thing. And you can just notice the push and pull of it. So it can be the very thing that, like, if you're in a romantic relationship or something like that, the electromagnetics can be the thing that actually you have the most issues with too. So it's just an interesting, I like to always remember it's both sides, and, it's not good or bad. It's not on paper. We have all these electromagnetics, right? Doesn't mean that there's not going to be challenges and like the or not version.
The or not thing, like when I was, I still am very new to HD, but the or not thing, you'll see in the chats or the groups or if you guys have HD meetups where you are, it took me a really long time to understand what they were talking about, but it like intuitively made sense, but I couldn't understand why. And that's a lot of what you're saying today too. It's like, that makes sense. Of course I want my opposite. But there's you can get really granular with it, which I think we all like to do. So I'm just sending them the image. Go ahead.
Well, if you still have gates of love up there, the gate 46 coming off the G center is the love of the body, but it's also the hate of the body. So, like, for example, someone that I know is like, they have that whole channel 4629, but so what I've noticed is like there's a phase they're going through right now where it's really a hate of the body. Like, they're very, very repulsed by their body. They're in a gender kind of exploration, and they have this gate love of the body, but it's the or not. It's the opposite of that right now that they're experiencing, which is going to be part of what they're here to experience because they have that gate. So they're going to experience the or not of it. They're going to experience, like, both. You can see, I don't know if you're, it might have gone through now. No, but it looks like it's still paused. And Tiffany and I, we both have that gate 46. I have certainly gone through hate of the body. I don't think that I would necessarily say I hate my body, but there's a lot of experiences in life that I can relate to that feeling. And now I'm sort of more, I guess in the age and cycle that I'm in, I'm moving closer to the love of the body. So that's kind of been my journey. And it depends on what gate and where it is and what planet, and all that. But just as a general understanding of that mechanic.
Where is it? I don't see it. Do y'all see it?
The G center pointing down to the sacral.
G. Oh, yes. I see it. Thank you. I skimmed. Okay.
Okay. So then so we talked about, the ways that these channels can come together. So there's electromagnetics where you each have a gate and boom, you get this whole, complete kind of like, oh, I found the other part of me because there's this feeling that is along those lines. And again, it can go attraction repulsion, and it may do that cycle over and over, not in a judgment way, can be a beautiful thing too. The other type besides electromagnetic is a compromise. So there's compromise channels as well, which means, one person has one gate in that channel and the other person has the whole channel. So you can kind of think of compromise as like, the person with the one gate is quote unquote compromised in that theme of that channel by the other person. Now, what we call, in human design, the compromise is really like, it's called like a hidden dominance, because the one with the whole channel is really going to lead the way. And the one with the one gate has to give in. Now, you can see how that could go either way. I'm a person, I have a design of, I have one channel, my whole chart. So I'm compromised left and right in like literally every relationship I have. So there's a feeling of like, yeah, that's normal. But if I'm not in complete surrender, basically, like 95% of the time, then I am really pushing against a lot of mechanics that it's not going to go well. It's going to be me that gets bitter as a projector. That's my signpost, right? Or as a generator, frustrated, right? As a manifestor, angry. As a reflector, disappointed. Like, we have these signposts. I'm going to get bitter and resentful. Unless I know that these are the mechanics, and I can start to watch and go, oh, but that's okay. For example, Tiffany has the 2644, which is the channel of the transmitter. Like, talk about like a marketing transmitter, like, can really sort of, not in a negative way, but manipulate and work with the way that the messaging comes out so that the tribe can hear it, so that it's for the good of the tribe, to allow resources to be, dispersed fairly among the tribe. It's for the good of the tribe, but it's, and I only have the 26th. So she has that whole channel. I have the 26th. And again, it's going to depend on some different nuances and where it is in your chart. It's my personality sun. So it's like my main expression is the 26th, and I'm compromised. I'm compromised in my partner with that channel. I'm compromised with Tiff in my friendship. So many people I know have that whole channel, and I'm compromised in that.
Do you guys understand what she's saying? Because it took me forever, and this is very easy, but do you understand what she's saying? It's like, if I have the whole channel and she only has one of it, and that's all. So I compromise her. And so one of the first things I do in my relationship analysis when I'm looking at me and somebody else is I go through and I list, where do I have the whole channel? And I vibe check to see if they only have one, because that means I'm going to compromise them. Does that make sense? Anybody have questions on that part? Because it is pretty cool.
Yeah.
People feel good, Leisha. I'm just the interrupter, like usual.
It is a little more challenging not because of point stuff.
I know.
The invitation of love thing, if you're still sharing that, you can see the 2644 there. That helps to picture it. It's from it's the red, the heart, ego center to the spleen, 2644. So, okay, so that compromise is a hidden dominance, because the one that has the one gate, like for example, in this example with me and Tiff, I have just the 26. So I just need to give in when she's like, no, this is what this is how I want to say it, like that. And it never really feels like that anyway, because we are so kind of surrendered to the mechanics, and we have all these other beautiful electromagnetics and all these other things, and we've been friends for decades. And so there is this, but I mean, maybe twice I've been like, well, I think it should be this. And it's kind of like, oh, because I have to give 26, which is the egoist. So sometimes, that I've seen that in reflection. I'm like, that's what happened there. I literally just need to be like, you know what? Yep, I totally see that. This is what I see, but not in a way that is going to try to dominate in any way what the messaging should be, as one example of that channel. So again, this can be attractive in the beginning, but then the person with the one gate really has to give in to that mechanic. Now, in a relationship, we do want to look at the compromise, because when a couple is in not self, okay, so now we're talking about how this will work once you're aware, and you can start to work with it, and like the respect and kindness, and really understand what you're looking at. But when a couple is in not self, which is really almost every couple, I mean, I want to say 100% of couples until they've started to look at these mechanics with human design, because how else do you know what your not self is and what you're, a not self couple, that is going to be the place of deterioration in the relationship, where they're having the greatest dilemmas in that compromise channel, because it's a hidden dominance, and the one really just going to have to kind of like move aside and let them lead the way in that area. So, again, there's so many things in the individual charts that make that more challenging for some, more, a little easier to step into for others. It depends on your life experience, what else you've learned and experienced and kind of come to. And so for me, I'm in this big theme in life of leaning back, surrendering, not inserting myself and forcing anything, like being in the flow. And so that for me has been the key too, because like I said, I think there's one relationship I know of, and I have probably 100 charts in my library of connection charts with me and family, friends, colleagues, whatever. One relationship that I know of, it's actually Kate, the 5 and 4 relationship, no more, no compromises with one person that I know. So it doesn't mean that you can't have successful relationships, or it's always going to be a problem or anything like that. And that it can't be beautiful. It's just, if you don't know, it is going to be the spot that is, in not self, going to be the thing that kind of doesn't ever really fix itself unless you can start to be aware of these mechanics. Okay, so we talked about electromagnetics, where one gate on either side comes together. We talked about compromise, where one person has one gate and the other person has the whole channel. There's also companion channels. That's where you both have the same channel. Like, say you both have the 2644. There's this, it can be kind of this nice, relaxing, like ease, because you both have that frequency and completely understand that without words even being needed. And with words, it can be kind of nice. It can be relaxing. Now, what's the other side of nice and relaxing, right? Like if we flip that coin, it can be boring. It can be boring. There can be no spice. There can be no necessarily attraction or repulsion, right? Like we kind of want, and that depends. Like it depends on what kind of relationship is correct for you. Because if we go back to like at the very beginning, and we talked about that this in December, the way we get into the correct relationships or get out of the incorrect relationships that we're in is strategy and authority, is by not betraying our integrity, our heart, who we are in our individuality. And you've got to really foundation reading and kind of really start to experiment with your own energies and watching how transits happen, watching who you are around different people and what comes out in your expression and how you feel, and follow your strategy and authority. And so that's going to be the foundation of everything. It's like you could be in a relationship that has only companion, quote unquote, boring or companion channels. However, that could be correct for you, the relationship you need in this life, because you have followed your strategy and authority to get into that relationship. And it's correct for you, and it feels like it's correct for you. There's something that feels right there. Doesn't mean it's easy. Doesn't mean there's no issues. There's no, disagreements. Doesn't mean any of that. No relationships mean any of that. Doesn't mean your life is going to be just perfect and amazing all the time, but it's going to be your life that's correct for you, and that has a different feeling, like a smoothness, So there's like that's the best way I can describe it. There's a smoothness of like, yes, there's these hard things happening, but I'm surrendered because this is correct, because I'm operating correctly. So it goes with relationships too. And if you're in a relationship that you're like, oh, I'm not sure, just continue to follow strategy and authority, and that will either lead you out of it or shift the relationship, or something, that you could never imagine with your mind, right? Could happen. And then the fourth kind, so there's electromagnetics, there's compromise, there's companion channels where we have the same channel, and then there's dominance channels where one person literally has the whole channel and the other person has not one gate or anything in that. And that really is, it's kind of like a compromise channel as well, where it's like, if someone has a whole channel and I don't have even a gate in that channel, they lead the way in that area, and you just kind of let them have it. Now, if you remember, one of the basic concepts in human design is wherever we are undefined in our chart, centers, channels, gates, we are, amplifying that energy potentially when someone comes around and is defined in that area. So if someone has a whole channel and I have nothing in that channel, then then I may find that I'm trying to amplify, and they notice and watch myself feeling this like, oh, I need to feel like I'm jumping in there with all this power and all of this stuff. I don't have to gain power, so let me look at that. Let me see that, and kind of adjust and step back. So those are the kinds of channel connections. So I want to just mention some other things that we looked at in relationship analysis. And one of them is, we can look at the gates of love. There's one gate in particular, but I want to mention there's also, there's all these other layers of the chart where you can look at similarities and differences. How do these work together? Where are they dissonant? Where are they harmonic? Where can they kind of work together? So again, there's no formula like, oh, I need to be with a harmonic profile that goes with my 1-3 profile. Doesn't mean that. It just means I may be with a dissonant profile, but is it correct? And can it be navigated with awareness and truth and kindness, and surrender? So the other layers we can add on to not only just the connection themes of how many centers and which centers are defined and open, but the compromise and dominance and electromagnetic channels. We can also look at the other things, definition. So that means, are you a single definition? Are you a split definition? Are all of your centers in your individual chart, are they all connected, or are they kind of in two different islands where they're not necessarily talking to each other all the time? Because that's going to be a huge different thing in relationship. If someone's a single definition, they almost like don't quote unquote need the other in the same way to complete their circuitry. But if someone is a split definition, now there's several kinds of split definitions that has a lot of nuance. If someone's a split definition, they're going to feel a need for the other for a relationship in a different way, because they have two islands that they need. Their energy is wanting to connect those islands so that everything can digest in their system, in their definition, what's defined in their chart. You can also look at profile. Some profiles have an inward process and a personal destiny in life as a trajectory. Some have an outward process and are transpersonal and focus outward and in universalizing and things like that. I mean, Tiffany and I are a great example. I have an inward process, very personal. That's kind of just the nature of my profile. Tiffany has an outward process. She needs to universalize what's practical. She has a transpersonal karma, kind of piece that she's working with in this life. You can look at profile harmonics or dissonance. You can look at what other statistics, like say somebody has no first lines in their whole chart, like in any of their gates. They're not going to care so much about the research, the data, the investigation, the introspection. And if the other person is a first line profile, they're going to care a lot of investigation and introspection and foundation. So there's some things you can look at with that and see where they work together and where they could potentially not work together. And then there's circuitry, which I know that coming up this year, we have we've done some sessions, some of these talks on circuitry, but we'll dive in a bit more to the different channels and things. So if there's tribal, collective, and individual circuitry. So say I have one channel, it's collective, that's it, right? Now, if my partner has 3 tribal channels, what does that look like? What does that mean? How does that show up? And again, there's nuances to that because, I may not have any tribal channels, but I may have a lot of things that for example, I'm touch cognition, and the tribal channels, anyone with tribal activation is very, touch is an important, way that the tribe kind of sticks together. So there's ways that it can work together that I think my mind wanted it to be formulaic initially in human design and interpreted things that way. But the more and more I layer in the experience and the knowledge, I'm like, it's not that simple. Again, is it correct? And then there's collective, there's individual. So again, if someone's collective, they're going to be more oriented towards humankind, sharing. Are they logical? Are they abstract? What is the other person? Do they care about sharing out, on humankind? Are they more, it's the family, and it's my way, if I'm an individual. So that's something to kind of look at. Then there's also, during the Lionsgate Summit, we did a talk on the quarters. Like in the Wave Mandala, you can see that there's 4 quarters, and the way that the wheel moves through, there's 4 quarters of the wheel. And it's really how our kind of spiral of evolution, it's these stages that it goes through, right? So if someone's in the first quarter of initiation and mind and purpose fulfilled through correct thinking, and another person, they're just concerned, I have to figure this out with my mind first, versus someone that's in the quarter of relating and bonding, the third quarter of duality, there could be a miss there, right? If we don't understand that or see that. Because one person's like, well, what about the way we're connecting? And the other's like, I don't care about that. I'm trying to figure out how to think about this, and I need knowledge, So all this can be navigated beautifully with awareness. And then there's the gates of love, which we did a post about, and I think Tiffany's sharing. it's like who, who has what gates, it's like kind of like the quality of the love. You can look at if it's in a defined or undefined center, if it's in a compromise or not. One thing that, I like about one that stands out a lot is gate 44. Gate 44 is successful love. On this thing, it says talent for success. And so it's like, I love you because we're a success. It's because of you that I find success. Now, I think I really relate to that with Tiffany and with my partner who have that channel 2644. And I, on my own, only have the 26. Right. So there is this feeling in my relationship with Tiffany, in my relationship with my partner, where it's like, we're a success because like we're together, we find it together. And often in a relationship, the not self of, of a relationship, and especially with 44s, I couldn't be a success without you. Like I need you to be a success, or if it weren't for me, you wouldn't have anything. Like I bring success. So, and that's not like, that can be detrimental to a relationship. And I can relate to that some in my partnership. Like we've been together 16 and a half years. Early in the relationship, maybe I even felt that way because I was amplifying his 44. And I was like sort of quote unquote the more successful one. But now the script has flipped, and it is, we've sort of reached this kind of involvement of it where he's now the successful one, but it feels like together we're kind of the self, not the not self, but the self version of that is we're success together, right? So there's a thing, just to use that one as an example, if you don't have, often this well, gate 44 success is connected often to wealth, money, right, material goods and things like that. It's a tribal channel. It's about material resources in the material plane. But if you don't in a relationship have resources, then that creates a lot of deterioration. It can be really tough, right? I mean, I've been in relationships where, we didn't, or in this relationship where we weren't as successful because it's been such a long relationship. So,
you could look at that too, Leisha, like in terms of, I like how you said, because, Wise Skies is an astrology company, and then I added on psychic development, and then human design found me through Leisha, and I wouldn't have this if it weren't for Leisha. I can tell you right now, but I think she also wouldn't have that platform if I hadn't been building up Wise Skies. So there I am, like with the resources for the tribe to externalize the information that she's been studying for years. And so it's a healthy way of that expression coming through.
Yes.
That's how I feel about it. And we're working on a workbook together that's kind of the same thing. It's like she's got all this great content, and I have a publishing company that can externalize all of that, so that's just another way. Yeah, sorry to interrupt, go ahead.
No, so I want to share, just because we do see the gates of love, thing that Tiffany is sharing. It says anti-mundane and mundane. So we talked about 44, which is in the mundane side. Because of course, we're talking about like material goods. How do we live life? We need, home, food, resources for the tribe, right? So you can see why these on the right are the mundane gates. And so with the anti-mundane gates, these are all in the G center. If you see, there's gate 25, 15, 46, and 10. These are all coming out the G center, which is love, identity, and direction. So these are the possibilities of transcendent love. And so rarely does this feel as strongly as personal love. So you can see who has some of the anti-mundane gates, who has the mundane gates. And you see 10 is on both. 10 is like, 10 is the one that's on both. And so if someone in the partnership has these anti-mundane gates, but maybe they don't have any of the mundane gates, they have the transcendent ones, but they don't have the mundane, that love is going to have a different quality to it, right? But if you're on the mundane side, then it's like this personal, it carries like this demand personal connectivity, like almost like the quote unquote illusion of love out there, like you complete me, right? And actually, as an aside, in human design, that is an illusion. You completely. The thing with love we're looking for that is going to complete us is the red and the black married together, the sacred union within our own design, the conscious and unconscious within our own design. Because we're all like, oh, I'm aware of that. I'm aware that I'm this and this, but are you aware of all the things that you can't even see, the unconscious side? And that's why I love human design. That's the ultimate union, is the red and the black within our own design. We're seeking it outside of ourselves, but it actually, it's within us. And so that illusion will always be there. Kind of part of the human experience. But
Nadine says one hand washes the other. I love that.
Yes, exactly. We're like feminine and masculine within us. It's almost like that kind of concept is we're seeking it always outside of us, but truly the union is within us. So yeah, the mundane is more looking for love with someone, and it's kind of like you can start to hear that in the mundane language of love that's out there, right? And so again, remember, these are the gates of love, but if we do the binary thing, these can also be the gates of, like, I don't even like to use the word, but like the gates of hate, or it's like I love or I don't love. So say I have gate 40, I love to work for the other, or I don't love to work for the other, right? So we can always kind of flip those and see what we can see if we have some of those gates in our design a little bit harder.
I love to work for the correct other. I love it. Yes, right? I'll do your dishes all day long if you're the correct other.
So it is 57. I just want to be mindful.
Yeah.
Even though we had a whole flopple at the beginning. What I love, I want to read this, these final thoughts.
Yeah.
If that's okay, and then we can see if there's anything that comes up, and go as long as you guys want to go. But so, of course, we really want to get to the place where there's no blame, no fault, no victims, no dependencies, just being correct and in self-love and allowing others to just be. When you're correct, you get the correct experience. This is about discernment. This is about being masters of the Maya, which is this world that we see, that we live in, right? Disconnecting from the not self world and truly loving yourself. So Ra Uru, who I said that, who is the founder, and then the other thing that I love that he said is, we're always beautiful for the correct person. It's not about how the wrapping looks, it's how it feels and smells. The only way that you can operate correctly, the only way in which you can align yourself to both what is correct caring and what is correct pleasure is through your strategy and authority. There is no other way. So, just to reiterate it, the union is within us, and we get in or out of any correct relationship with our strategy and authority. Otherwise, we're always doing maintenance, and if there's something that's just not quite right? So
I think that is so important to talk about, like getting out of a relationship, because if you're considering a breakup or getting out of a relationship, but you want to be in your strategy and authority, mine is to wait to respond. It's not to initiate a breakup, And so it's if you're really experimenting with operating from your design, it's tricky because society will tell you what to do, and you know what I mean? Like, we can do that. But I'm on the, and exactly in our mind. I meant to bring up, I'm rereading the Untethered Soul. Where Leisha and I are going to a writer's retreat at the end of February. And that's like the book that you're supposed to, they have the book talk for. And it really revisits that separation of the self, who are you, from the mind. And to me, being on this experiment, in human design, helps me see that like beautifully. So I think that it's as important to exit correctly as it is to enter correctly. And it's very controversial. I want to say it's just very different than what we were taught on how to do things. And a lot of times, doing nothing is the best thing we can do while we're waiting. So Nadine has a comment about the power of the pause, and that's really saved my life. But do you guys, it's 1:00. I want to quickly mention that March 2nd, we did this one now because we're going to on-ramp to March 2nd, which is about parenting. And so this is good, whether you are a parent or whether you have parents. But this is a perfect like on-ramp into that part of the conversation. And then in April is the one I'm most excited about this year. She's going to be talking about insects, reptiles, plants, and how HD is different for these different beings. And so I'm personally very excited about that. I want to say thank you to you guys for your patience with our weather situation today. We will work on something special for you to make amends for this situation. And if you guys have questions, it sounds like Leisha's able to hang out for a little bit. So if anybody wants to unmute, please feel free. Yeah, Untethered Soul, Michael Singer. Yeah, I'm rereading it and I'm like, how did I not underline that the first time? Yeah, it's like totally different. It was assigned reading during my yoga teaching, and it was good, but it was like more fun to do yoga than it was to read. So I guess I wasn't as deep into it. Yeah. Yeah. Well, guys, I love your beautiful faces and thank you for sticking with us. I know this was probably a little frustrating, but I hope you learned something and got some good nuggets out of it. And I'll send everybody the replay, and Leisha and I will work up a little special offer for the inconvenience today.
Yeah. And of course, we do relationship analysis readings. We can look at definitely, foundation reading we want first, because you've got to be rooted in your own individual design. But love doing relationship analysis, and it really is enlightening to see some of the mechanics laid out in some of those relationships. So we definitely invite you to. If you respond to that, we invite you to that as well.
Yes, it gave me an idea for our special offer. Sophia is asking if we need a birth time for our relationship analysis. You mean of the other person? Yes. Yeah, you need full birth time. The only thing you don't need is city, right, Leisha?
For the other person, you will need all their birth information.
But
we have to run a chart for them. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, but do you need city?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
What is it that you don't need in HD that you do need in regular astrology? I can't remember. Okay.
Well, it was when we were talking about the rave New Year. I think that like that date or something that we were like, oh, you don't need location. It's the same.
Okay. Well,
like it was that.
She's saying that she doesn't have her husband's birth time because it's not on a certificate. Do you have any rectification? Like in astrology, we have chart rectification tools. Do you have anything like that in HD?
So we can, so there's two answers. You can, I have like a recommendation that people have used, and you probably have one too, for birth time rectification, because you can do that in human design as well, or you can do it with an astrologer person that can rectify that.
Yeah.
Or the other choice is what I've done with some people that have gotten readings is they'll say, I don't really know what time, but this is the day in the city. We can look at what is in common in the chart. Like I'll run times throughout the day to see what changes. Often not a lot of the foundational elements change. Now the substructure and things like that, and digestion and environment will change. But we can still do it with like we can do the things that are constant throughout that day. So in other words, we have a way we can work around that if you don't have that for your partner. And I'll just run some extra times and kind of see what's in common for that day, and then look at the chart connected.
That's awesome.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I'm happy to recommend an astrologer to do chart rectification. And I think that she even recently did a free workshop. So we could figure it out, through astrology, and then you could use that data with Leisha in HD.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So I'll do some homework, and I can't think of her name, but I know I can find it if I dig around for a little bit. Okay. Guys, blessings, stay warm. Any other questions for Leisha? We feeling good? Thank you for being here.
Yeah, I never ended up with against openness for doing it in a weird way.
Did you lose power or just internet?
No, I mean, the power's kind of blinked on and off, but the internet, it says that it shows that it's connected, but no site, nothing's working. So
Yeah.
we'll have to see how
That was here yesterday. There's no power, no electric at my house, but at my friend's house, she has power but no internet. And then today we have internet and power. So don't tell the rest of us because they don't have it.
right. I'll be coming over, Jeff.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and end this. Thank you guys. I'll send the replay and thanks, Leisha.